Judson Fry had never believed in luck, not the kind that showed up like a sunrise. But that Tuesday morning in a cracked warehouse lot in Ohio, he felt something shift in the air. The kind of shift a man feels when life has pushed him so far down that even the smallest rise feels like a miracle. He stood among strangers who smelled of old leather, cigarette smoke, and broken dreams, all circling storage unit 217 like buzzards waiting for something to die. He had shown up with the last $600 in his unemployment check, the last thread between him and the eviction notice taped to his trailer door. As the auctioneer's voice echoed through the metal-paneled yard, Judson saw the others pulling back, shaking their heads, refusing to touch a unit filled with nothing but dusty furniture and unmarked cardboard. But Judson wasn't most people. When life strips a man down to his bones, he learns to listen to the quiet places inside him, the tiny voice that says, maybe this time. So he raised his hand with a courage he did not feel. And when the gavel fell, when the crowd walked away, when that creaking metal door rolled up to reveal what would come next, Judson didn't realize he wasn't stepping into an opportunity. He was stepping into a storm. An irreversible, uncontrollable storm that would test the limits of every ounce of hope he had left. The first box he opened felt like any other cheap, worn-out moving box you'd find in a neighbor's garage sale. But when he peeled back the newspaper wrapping and saw the tightly packed bundles of crisp hundreds, Judson gasped like a man taking his first breath after drowning. His fingers trembled as he lifted a plastic-wrapped stack. Heavy, cold, impossibly real. He tore into another box, then another. The same, always the same. Money packed into ordinary cardboard, hidden with the kind of precision only a man with wealth and fear could arrange. $7 million. More than he could imagine in a lifetime of honest work. More than his father or grandfather could have earned across 100 years, turning wrenches and patching radiators. As he stood inside the dim storage space with sunlight slanting through the cracked doorway, he felt a pressure in the air, the kind that tells a man he's holding something he was never meant to touch. A fortune like this didn't get lost. It didn't get forgotten. Someone hid it for a reason, and someone somewhere would come looking. Judson closed the unit door, locked it from the inside, and leaned against the cold metal wall. His mind sprinted, visions of late bills disappearing, of a real bed, of breathing again without the weight of poverty crushing his chest. But beneath all that hope lived a darker feeling. The same instinct that makes a deer freeze at the snap of a twig. By evening, Judson had moved every box to his trailer, 60 in total, stacked floor to ceiling like crude monuments to a life that wasn't his. Each trip from the storage unit felt like carrying dynamite through a crowded street, praying no one noticed, praying no one asked why he was sweating through his shirt in 40-degree weather. He drove with white knuckles on the steering wheel, checking the rearview mirror every 10 seconds, convinced headlights behind him were tracking his every turn. And in a town where everyone talks, where gossip spreads faster than wildfire across dry brush, Judson knew he'd already made mistake number one. Being seen. By nightfall, he sat in the dark of his trailer with every light off, the boxes silhouetted like silent witnesses to his panic. He listened to every crunch of gravel outside, every dog bark, every car that idled too long. When his neighbor Ray knocked just after 3 a.m., asking questions with eyes that lingered too long on Judson's nervous smile, the truth sank deeper. Money doesn't just draw interest, it draws people. People who want it, people who hate that you have it, people who'll decide for you what belongs to whom. And somewhere in a higher place where power flowed freely, the Caldwells, wealthy, untouchable, were already stirring, already asking questions, already rewinding the mistake that let a broken mechanic walk off with their hidden empire. The knock that came at sunrise wasn't the casual kind. It was firm, practiced, official. A man in a suit stood on Judson's steps holding an envelope like it was a verdict. Inside, a lawyer's letter from an upscale firm downtown politely demanded the return of specific assets belonging to the Caldwell estate. Not cash, not boxes, just assets, vague and cold, like a warning delivered with a smile. Within minutes of opening the letter, his phone rang. Clarice Caldwell, her voice crisp as glass, requested a meeting. Judson didn't have the luxury to refuse. By 2 p.m. He walked through marble floors and glass walls, guided into a conference room surrounded by people who lived in a world where problems were solved with signatures, not struggle. Preston and Clarice sat across from him, sharp eyes, perfect posture, confidence crafted from generations of money. Their lawyers lined the table, quiet but heavy like storm clouds. They spoke in polite tones, calling the cash an oversight, the unit a mistake. But their smiles didn't reach their eyes. They slid a folder across the table offering $50,000, an insult dressed as generosity. When Judson hesitated, they reminded him how small he was, how courts worked for people who had the power to tilt them. If he refused, they'd freeze his accounts, drag him through hearings he could never afford, bury him under paperwork until he couldn't breathe. Judson left that room knowing one truth. He was not negotiating with a family. He was negotiating with a machine. Back in his cramped trailer, Judson paced between towers of boxes like a man trapped between heaven and hell. $7 million, money he could never spend, never hide, never touch without someone stronger taking notice. He searched for lawyers willing to help, but each conversation ended the same way. Polite sympathy wrapped around a quiet no. Fighting the Caldwells was suicide. Even the one attorney who took his call said what Judson already feared: legal battles weren't about right or wrong. They were about endurance, and the Caldwells could outlast him 10 years over. That night, unfamiliar cars drifted slowly past his trailer. Strangers stood near his truck, whispering. His phone buzzed with messages from people he didn't know offering opportunities, protection, or advice. It didn't take long for rumors to outrun the truth. In a town starving for excitement, a man suddenly moving boxes at midnight was a feast. Judson shoved his dresser against the door and sat with his back to it, heart pounding hard enough to shake the floor. He realized then that he wasn't protecting the money was consuming him. Every shadow felt like danger. Every voice outside sounded like someone who knew too much. As the night stretched on, Judson understood what the rich already knew: money isn't just wealth, it is a signal flare, a declaration. A target painted on your back for the world to aim at. When the deadline approached, Judson called Clarice with a shaky breath and a bargain: $2 million. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that said she'd heard 1,000 desperate men try the same move. But she didn't hang up. 10 minutes later, she returned with the final offer: $2 million, not a penny more, take it now or lose everything. And Judson, exhausted, surrounded, cornered by fear, said yes. 2 hours later, 3 black SUVs rolled into the trailer park like federal escorts. Preston, Clarice, and 4 security men carefully removed each box, counting them as if each contained fragile crystal instead of dangerous truth. Judson signed papers he barely understood: non-disclosure agreements, releases, acknowledgments. His signature inked away the biggest discovery of his life. When the transfer hit his phone, $1. $2 million wired instantly. He felt no thrill, no relief, only emptiness. Preston found one stray bundle behind the dresser, holding it up with a raised eyebrow, as if reminding Judson how easily the family saw what he missed. Before leaving, Clarice gave him a number to call if anyone caused problems. It was less a kindness and more a statement: we decide what's safe for you now. As the SUVs disappeared, Judson stood alone in a trailer that suddenly felt too quiet, too hollow. The weight pressing on his chest wasn't the loss of $7 million. It was the realization that it had never belonged to him. Not really. Not in any way that mattered. 6 months later, Judson lived 4 hours away in a small rental with peeling paint and a front porch where he drank coffee at sunrise. He worked at a mechanic shop that paid cash under the table, grateful no one asked questions. The $2 million, trimmed by taxes and small fees, left him with roughly $748,000, more than he ever dreamed of, yet strangely less than he needed for peace. He invested quietly, lived quietly, breathed quietly, trying to shrink himself back into a world that didn't notice him. The nights were the hardest. Sometimes he woke at 3 a.m., hearing phantom footsteps outside, imagining silhouettes at his window, ghosts of the past he wished he'd never opened. The non-disclosure agreement sat untouched in a folder in his closet like a gravestone, marking the moment his life split in two. Before the box and after, he wondered why Harlan Caldwell hid the money. Greed, fear, protection. Maybe the man was planning an escape from his own empire. Maybe he trusted no one, not even his children. Judson would never know. But each time he thought about it, a simple truth surfaced. Some wealth comes with roots deep enough to choke whoever grabs it. And Judson had grabbed with both hands, unaware of the vines wrapping around him. He had escaped, yes, but not without scars. Not without learning what kind of world powerful people live in, and how little mercy there is for those who stumble into it. In the end, Judson learned that life-changing moments don't always arrive like blessings. Sometimes they come disguised as opportunity, wrapped in cardboard, sealed with tape, waiting for the desperate to pull them open. What he found inside that storage unit didn't elevate him. It tested him, exposed him, reshaped him. He gained a future he could afford, but lost the innocence that allowed him to dream without fear. Every time he paid a bill early, every time he filled his truck without checking the price, every time he sat on that quiet porch breathing easier, he remembered the lesson he bought with $600 and paid for in sleepless nights. Not all fortunes are meant to be found. Some exist only to reveal the truth about people, both the ones who hide wealth and the ones who stumble across it. What mattered wasn't the money, but the awakening. The understanding that struggling doesn't make a man weak, but sudden wealth can. That power isn't always earned. It's inherited, protected, enforced. And that survival, not winning, is sometimes the closest thing a working man gets to victory. As Judson watched the evening settle across the quiet street of his new life, he held onto the one thought that kept him steady. The real